So I'm David Robbins, and I'm the concentration coordinator for the User Experience Design concentration in the IACM program here at Kent State University. And I'd like to thank both my administration and the Information Architecture Institute for co-sponsoring this series. The mission of this series is to provide an open forum for ideas to be shared and discussed among professionals and students in user experience design. You can watch these presentations by past speakers, get information about the series, and propose a talk of your own at uxconnect.wordpress.com. And you can send us direct tweets at UXConnect, and please use the hashtag UXConnect to tweet about us. So the basic format of this is we have a session each first and third Mondays at noon Eastern Time, and the speaker usually goes on for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then we leave the remainder with Q&A. And use WebEx chat for questions and address them to everyone. So when we take questions, we'll have a record of them through UX, through the WebEx. So today's speakers are Heather Wydeven. Did I pronounce that correctly, Heather?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And Claire Bailey. And
yep.
So I got that one too. Right?
Yeah, that's great.
Shows my vast experience in pronouncing people's names. So I just tell you a little bit about Heather. She attributes her passion for user experience to her varied background, beginning with many years she spent acting and directing in theater productions and carrying over into her previous career as a graphic designer. We see that a lot of people coming into our program with those types of backgrounds. So Heather discovered UX through her own frustrations with online experiences and a desire to make those experiences better for everyone. She entered the UX field in 2013 through the apprenticeship at the Nerdery, and is currently still employed there as the Associate UX Director, where she works in all facets of user experience landscape. And Claire Bailey, always curious about human behavior, Claire gained her Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, which led her on a path from counseling to data management and into press. But recognizing that she lost sight of her own career interests, she returned to school and quickly discovered that user experience design was the perfect marriage of behavior and design, a field that would allow her to use her diverse background to her advantage. Claire finished her degree and was accepted in the UX Apprenticeship at the Nerdery in 2013. She's advanced to become an associate UX designer, creating usable experiences for everyone. So today they're going to talk about their experience as apprentices in this is a follow-up to 2 weeks ago when Fred talked about the program in general, and now we have two people who have actually experienced that program. And so I'm really happy to have Heather and Claire, and they're going to talk about their unique perspective on the struggles that accompany any attempt to enter the UX field, and they overcame these struggles through an apprenticeship program at the Nerdery. So their combination of educational and experience background, their determination to become UX designers, and their passion for UX have opened the door to the UX apprenticeship program for them. So these things not only played a large role in their entry into the UX and throughout their apprenticeship, but also benefit them today as full-time UX designers. So we want you to come away, everybody to come away from this presentation with practical advice and inspiration to find their own UX paths, your own unique paths in the UX. So just as a reminder before we get started, use the WebEx chat for questions and address them to everyone, and you'll be muted by the host to avoid any random background noise. So I'd like to turn it over to Heather and Claire. So Mike, our quite able GA who helps us with these programs, will do that. And we're ready to go.
Great. Well, thank you, David. We really appreciate this opportunity to speak to you all today. And yeah, you did a great job summarizing what we're here to talk about today is our experience with the apprenticeship, and we want to give you a background into our journeys into UX and how we got there, and also want to share some practical steps for how anyone can get into the UX field and succeed in user experience. So we'll go ahead and just get right into it. So beginning by talking about how can you get into UX?
Yep. Just from our background, we came from different fields, as David pointed out. And once we discovered that UX was definitely the way we wanted to go, there was a few hurdles that we realized right away, just in looking at some of the careers that were out there, jobs that were posted. We were seeing a minimum of 3 years experience required, not a lot of entry-level positions. And so we were questioning, okay, so how does one get into UX, get started in UX? And obviously there are some programs out there, advanced programs. In a lot of people, they may be working in an unrelated field or closely related field, either way. And then, you know, they just have a mentor who happens to be in UX within their company or somebody that they're working closely with, and they mentor them into becoming a good UX designer. And then eventually they make that career transition. But, you know, a lot of it sometimes may be out of luck. Like they were lucky enough to be working in a company or with someone who is doing UX, so they can do that. So obviously the pathway that we chose was apprenticeship. So we were lucky enough, you know, to meet Fred and Fred Beecher and learn about this apprenticeship. Sounds like great opportunity. You know, hey, we could start out, this is entry level. Our backgrounds obviously still apply, and that's a big point we want to make, is that people from different backgrounds, different fields of work, can take those skills and interests and apply them to UX. You know, it's important to emphasize the skills and knowledge that you already have getting into this. So my personal background, and we've already covered some of this, was psychology. I got my degree in psychology, and as a lot of you know, psychology does play a big role in UX. You know, my background was in psychology, and obviously human behavior plays a big role in UX. And then I became interested in graphic design, eventually led to web design, which then led to UX design. And so that's a little bit about my background.
Yeah, and it's like similar to Claire, I've had a background, you know, it's been, you know, varied in different fields. I actually started off, as you mentioned earlier, in theater and did that for many years and directed, and decided I wanted to get involved in graphic design through just experience in you know, past positions and just being inspired by friends of mine who were in the field, and always just growing up with that artistic and creative background. So I went back to school for graphic design, and it was during that time that I just started realizing, you know, I'm using all of these different sites and having all these experiences online, and I feel like there's got to be a better way to, you know, how some of these things are designed. And so that led me to a search for, at the time I didn't know it was user experience, but I was searching for a career that I was like, no, there's got to be something that I can do to make these experiences better. And I think at the time it was user interface designer or something to that extent. And you know, like we had mentioned earlier, so much experience that you needed, and, you know, different education and just things that I didn't feel like I had at the time. So I kind of tabled that for, oh, maybe later I'll get into that career. And well, later actually ended up having to be sooner than I thought when I stumbled across the Nerdery and the UX Apprenticeship through a webinar that I actually did on how to get into UX at the Nerdery. And so then found the apprenticeship and got my start into UX that way, and just like Claire had mentioned, just how a lot of backgrounds can apply to UX, even theater, which is something that I didn't really, you know, realize at the time. But the longer that we spend in user experience, we're realizing, like, wow, we can apply so many different areas of our backgrounds and our experience to what we're doing in UX. You know, it's psychology, that's an easy one. Then theater, I'm realizing that there's a management aspect of it. There's you know, just dealing with different personality types, learning to think on your feet. I mean, there's really so many things that can apply to our delight, as we've been realizing.
Yeah.
More and more experience we have. So now you know a little bit more about our backgrounds. We want to talk to you more about the apprenticeship experience as a whole. If some of you were hearing Fred Beecher's presentation a couple of weeks ago, he went into great detail about that and the components of that and starting it at Accompany. So we're really going to give just more of a brief overview of the entire program, and then we're going to talk more specifically, more detail about what our experience was and the successes and the struggles and just the things that we learned. So first of all, just a brief overview of the different components of apprenticeship. One of the biggest things was just the different learning methods that we had. Mentorship, we had weekly reading, we had interactive workshops, and I think all of these different activities just really gave us the opportunity to grasp what UX was about and to really experience all the different facets of UX. We got to observe these UX methods in action. So we did user experience, contextual inquiry, wireframes, interaction design, client meeting. I mean, there were so many things that we had the opportunity to observe, and it was, mentors and other people in the department. Everybody has, a slightly different style and way of doing things, and we got to see all of this stuff through our student apprenticeship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just practicing hands-on application, right? Early on, we were actually working on, real projects, so to speak, and working with clients, sitting in on user interviews, and eventually, getting in and doing some of those ourselves. And so we were practicing fairly early on. It wasn't, right off the bat. We spent the early months observing, and then it led into that practicing of actually working on live projects. And then play through problem solving. We did a lot of play, I think, as our 4-person apprentice team, and weekly we got together. We had our workshops where we were, Fred would give us a problem to solve or something to figure out, and we'd use, I know, the book Game Storming was a good one.
Yeah,
we used
a great one.
Yeah, we use that quite a bit to figure things out and learn how to manage workshops on our own. And so we did some of that as our apprentice team as well, on some live projects. So it was great. We were just kind of thrown right into the factory.
Definitely. Yep. Hands-on experience. It wasn't like he was jumping in right away. It wasn't like this kind of thing that we were just waiting. Okay, we're going to get the chance to do it sometime. It was no, right away. Like Claire said, a little bit of observation, and then boom, got to, under the guidance of our mentors, of course. But yeah. So we'll talk a little bit here now about some of the successes and the challenges that went along with the apprenticeship. And I mean, overall, it really was a great experience and a lot of very positive takeaways. So as we've been kind of discussing here, exposure to a variety of UX methods. I mean, we really got, the exposure to everything, which is unique, I think, that to the apprenticeship in that sense. I mean, if you're doing an internship or some other types of programs, you might not always necessarily get to experience all of these things. But we had a spreadsheet, and we got to keep track of all the methods that we were training in. And so it was fun to see our progress through that every week as we got to learn and observe new things. And it really helped us to focus in on specific disciplines. I think we all kind of, when we came into the apprenticeship, had areas that we wanted to focus in. And going through the apprenticeship, it kind of helped us to hone in more on what those areas were that we wanted to focus in on. We mentioned the interactive hands-on learning. Again, just really, really big, I think, to help us learn how to do UX. I mean, UX is so hands-on and is so interactive. So I think that was a huge success for the apprenticeship. We gained some really valuable UX resources. I mean, we've met some great people here at the Nerdery. I mean, everybody here is so brilliant. There's so much knowledge in our department. So not only gaining resources through people, but just, websites and articles and blogs and books. So many things that we can go back to and reference, whether we're here in our UX career or outside the Nerdery.
And I was just going to say, daily we're receiving emails from our teammates. Hey, read this article, read this, check this out. So constantly being exposed to those resources.
Yeah, great. And just preparation to enter the UX field. So, I mean, we were all, from our apprenticeship group hired on here at the Nerdery. But whether it's here at the Nerdery or whether it's somewhere else, we really feel like the apprenticeship gave us the tools and the skills that we needed to feel like we could have a job in UX. So it bridged that gap between, where we were at, where we all had a lot of great experience coming into the apprenticeship, and then all we needed was that, some of those tools and some of those skills to go out and become UX designers.
Exactly. And with successes, of course, there comes some challenges. And being part of the first round of apprenticeship too, I think there was a lot of some trial and error, figuring out what works best, but also just for our own, we did make personal sacrifices, if you will. And because we knew we wanted to commit ourselves to this field. But both of us came from, we were working in different industries,
established careers.
Yep. And I think I had just finished school. And so then we decided that we just wanted to commit ourselves to this, but we did have to make that change and take a leap of faith, starting over. So that was a little bit of a sacrifice at first, and I think we adjusted well, and we're both very happy where we are now, and we know we're doing what we want to be doing. So it was worth it, definitely.
Yeah, nothing good ever happens without a little bit of, personal sacrifice in that sense. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a negative thing at all. I mean, it's definitely a commitment that we have to make. You have to make that decision, for yourself personally, which Kara's saying we did. So.
Yep. And emotional highs and lows. There a lot of times we were having fun, we were excited to be doing this stuff, and then other times where, I feel like I'm not as involved as I'd like to be at this point. I really want to be doing more. Why are the other apprentices doing this? They're getting out and doing, you're looking at things because you only have these, for us personally, we had 3 months of this apprenticeship, and so we wanted to learn. We were all very passionate about it. We wanted to learn as much as possible in this 3 months. And then learning the ropes at a new company. Yes, and that's true for many new fields, starting in new fields. You need to figure out how people work and interact, and so there was some growing pains there, learning, tracking time, all of those types of activities, and adjusting to the various styles of our mentors. It was really nice to be able to work with a variety of mentors in such a short amount of time and see how they work. But we may be working with one mentor who says, I like to do it this way. And then we go and we do something, work on another project, and they do it completely differently. So just adjusting to those types of things. And I wouldn't necessarily call it a challenge, but it was just something that we had to constantly be aware of. So.
Well, we learned many valuable lessons as apprentices, and there were some things I think that we had before, as we've talked about before, we entered apprenticeship versus, here's what we learned during the apprenticeship and how we're applying it now that we're UX designers. We've mentioned a lot about these valuable skills that can translate easily to UX, and really that's just, again, can't stress that enough, how much we are realizing on a daily basis, like, wow, these skills that we have are really applicable to user experience. A big thing is passion. That was one of the biggest reasons why a lot of us were hired into the apprenticeship. I mean, we may not have had, any UX experience starting in, but we did have passion. And I know that was one of the big factors that, played into us getting hired. And a desire to learn and grow. We are all, as I mentioned, very eager to get in and learn about UX and to really grow. And I think just demonstrating that passion and that desire for learning new things is huge, and something that we all had demonstrated. And then after apprenticeship, I mean, again, those skills that we had going in, I mean, we didn't forget about those things. It was just like, we're starting a little bit in a sense from square one, where we're learning about this whole new field, something that none of us had really ever experienced before. But at the same time, we've got all this other experience and all this other background that's truly valuable. And it's not that we have to forget all of that or leave that to the wayside, but we found ways to combine those things, those skills, those other passions from our other backgrounds with what we were doing as user experience designers. And I think that's really made us a very well-rounded designers, the more that we're experiencing UX. And being patient with ourselves, that was a huge thing for a lot of us, is that we were, like Claire mentioned, very eager, very excited to get in and to begin learning UX. And it is a lot to learn, and it can be overwhelming at times. It's contributing to a lot of like the highs and lows that we experienced during the apprenticeship. But it's just really like we have a lot to learn, and we're starting out, and that's okay. And we just have to be patient, and we know we're going to learn all of those things eventually, and just to really embrace all the opportunities, which kind of goes into the next point there, identifying opportunities for growth and for learning, continuing to really embrace those opportunities and to identify those when they come along. So, you know, using those opportunities as ways to just make our experience as UX designers really more valuable and making us more well-rounded as designers. And be comfortable with the uncomfortable. This is a big thing that a lot of us would experience is like, again, starting from, you know, into a new career, it's not really like, I think I'm outside of my comfort zone a little bit here, but embracing that and just learning to be comfortable with that and just having every opportunity be meaning something and, you know, not turning those things down, but instead, even though it might be a little scary or it might be a little uncomfortable, you know, doing something, but we're embracing that and we're still using that as an opportunity. And we have to be okay with making mistakes. We have to know that it's okay that, you know, we don't know everything right away. And I think one of the great things here, especially about the Nerdery and the way the apprenticeship was set up, is that it was a safe environment. It's like failure is okay in this sense, you know, where it's a safe place to learn and to experiment and to grow and make those mistakes now and have people that can guide you and help you learn from those mistakes and then figure out how to do it better the next time. And that's what this whole process is about.
Yep. And I think that continues as well, even outside of the apprenticeship. Always keeping in mind, learn from your mistakes. Or figure out what your, maybe not your strong points are and embrace those and try to get better. Don't back away from those. Don't shy away from some of the things that you know you can improve upon. It makes you better.
Exactly. Now we want to give you some practical steps now that, you know, anyone can use when wanting to succeed in user experience. And these are things that we've learned as we've been, you know, trying to get into the UX field and then through the apprenticeship and then just our experiences, you know, as we try to get more and more experience here within the Nerdery and then also opportunities for growing outside of the Nerdery. So here are some things that we would recommend. Personal immersion, first of all, we think there's two different sides to this, I want to mention, so personal and professional. So I'm going to talk about how you can personally immerse yourself in your career and what you do. And again, we talked about that passion, so really being passionate about what you do. It really, even if you don't have a whole lot of experience like we didn't when we came in, we were passionate and we were excited and we wanted to talk about it. We wanted to learn everything that we could about it, and that really, really shows if you're excited about what it is that you're doing and you love what you do. Taking risks and going outside of your comfort zone. Again, both Claire and I can speak to this, and I think a lot of us that have gone through the apprenticeship can speak to it, is that it was a risk that we took, you know, leaving an established career and trying something completely new. I know I remember having the thought, like, I don't know if I'm going to be good at this. I wonder if I'll even like it, but I'm going to try it. And I'm so glad that I, as the next point says, say yes to opportunities. I'm so glad that I said yes to this opportunity of the apprenticeship. And you know, it's about that personally, that motivating yourself, and about the attitude and the mindset that you need to be in, so to be ready to identify those kinds of opportunities.
Yes. And yeah, and even outside of apprenticeship, I know when I was finishing school, there were so many events that I could attend or go to on UX and web design, and I didn't, to be honest, always love going to those things, especially if I didn't know someone there. It was easy to say, you know, I'm done with work, I've worked the whole day, I want to just go home and relax, and I don't want to now go to another event. But because it's at those events or taking any other types of opportunities, taking time to speak with someone who wants to chat with you, that's when things can really happen and great things can happen. And that's how I know I decided to go to design camp. And I knew some people, but not really well. And so it was a whole weekend event away. It was outside of my comfort zone, but I decided I'm going to go and just see what this is. And that's where I found out about UX. That's where I met Fred Beecher. That's how I found out about apprenticeship. You know, within 1 hour, because I had taken that risk, that's how I got on the path to apprenticeship. So that's a good, so yeah, I know again, my last year of school, it was, I didn't always want to go out and do stuff. I knew, but it was important. It was coming to the end. I would be graduating in a few months. So I decided, rather than put things off till the end of the semester, or do one thing every day. It prevented me from procrastinating till the last minute. But they didn't have to be big things either. I know I would force myself to read at least one article a day about UX, or read a book about UX, or get in contact with someone, go to an informational interview, and just do one thing a day. That was a rule that I really strive to live by, even now. Yeah. Yep. And polish up your portfolio if you're finishing school in UX or web design or anything like that, graphic design, print design. Polishing that portfolio is huge. That's, I've heard time and time again from recruiters as well that the portfolio is really what gets their attention. And then once you get their attention, showing your process, how did you solve this problem? This is a beautiful design, but how did you get there? Why did you make these choices? What research did you do? What was your sketching process, your thought process? Show that. I've heard time and time again, that is really key. And getting involved, again, like I said, finding local organizations that do that are focused on what you are interested in, and attending those meetings. I know another rule I follow now is to go to one event a month at least, and meet people. And it's nice because you start seeing people that you recognize, and they're at other events. You start chatting with them, just getting to know people, making connections. And pulling knowledge from a source outside of UX, I've also found is very important, so that you're coming up with that original thought. There's tons of great articles about UX out there, and it seems most everything seems to have been covered already. It feels like sometimes. So when you're going outside, like me personally, I read about. I'll go out and read about cognitive psychology in a separate book. It's unrelated to UX, but then it forces me to have some original thought and make those connections on my own. And same could be true for just going out and understanding other industries, especially in UX. We're working with completely different industries on every project. So learning more about those industries, making connection, only makes you stronger when you are working on varied projects like we do. So yeah, again, get involved. We have, I don't even know how many, at least 4 or 5 UX organizations in Minnesota. So I know they're out there all over the country as well. And reading UX books, blogs, articles, tons of great references out there. Attending design conferences, a lot of great ones there too. Especially if you can, if you're lucky enough to have your employer pay for you to get to those things, or allow you at least the time to go to those things. Those are all awesome opportunities. Set up informational interviews. If you know people out there, which all of us do, some form or another, or somebody we know knows someone, try to get an informational interview with them. Whether you want to work there or not, just finding out more about that company, practicing your speaking skills and your interviewing skills is very important. Just staying in touch with those people. And then following any UX thought leaders, on social media. Connecting on LinkedIn is great if you've met the person. It can be a brief meeting or something, but recommend at the very least when you connect with them, send a personalized message. That's obviously very important, but I know sometimes we forget to do that. But they want to know they want
the connection, like where, hey, this is where I met you, or remember me from such and such meeting, or
exactly.
Fine.
Yep. And Twitter is great for you can respond to something and you can received feedback so quickly from these great thought leaders, and it's like, oh, cool, they responded to me. You know, I'm interacting with them, and I'm
Yes, I continue to be amazed at how quickly things spread on Twitter.
yes.
Maybe I shouldn't be, but I still am. So we are hiring now. The Nerdery is still hiring for the apprenticeship for summer and fall. So if you are something that we said kind of makes you interested in the apprenticeship or learning more about it, there is a link to our website here where you can find out more about the position. And Fred has written some blogs, and one of our other former apprentices wrote a great blog as well that also speaks more to what apprenticeship is about and to our apprenticeship experience. And as Claire had mentioned about connecting on social media, we'd be happy. Here's our information if you're interested in connecting with us. Our email address here at the Nerdery and our Twitter handles and our Nerdery profiles, which are kind of fun to read. So you're more than happy to, if anyone has any further questions outside of here, we do love talking about the apprenticeship, and we love connecting with people who are interested in just UX in general, or talking about experiences that they've had or how their personal journeys into UX, because as we've talked about, that's really something that we've enjoyed here. We all came in from different areas, and I think, well, one of our apprentices was a student, or still is, finishing up school, and we've had backgrounds from also a lot of design, graphic design backgrounds, and marketing. We even have, actually, this isn't really from the apprenticeship, but in our UX department, we've got, I know, people that were librarians before, and so it's really cool to talk about everybody and see personal experiences, writers, content strategists. So really neat to see that. But we are wrapped up with our section of the presentation, so we can open it up for questions now.
Right off the bat, I have one just to maybe get started, and I just posted it here. So if you guys had to estimate, and I know one of the things that happens when you go into a new organization, it seems like part of the learning, and sometimes even a huge part of the learning, is learning the culture versus learning the mechanics of the job you have to do. And if you had to estimate about during the 3 months of your apprenticeship, how much of it was learning the organizational culture and how much of it was learning UX?
Yeah, I think for where we were, the Nerdery has a huge, very unique culture, and it's a lot about the Nerdery culture. You're immersed in it when you get in here, and so I think that, at least for me personally, a big part of it was adjusting to life here at the Nerdery, and there's so many unique things, activities to be involved in and things to know. And like Claire had mentioned, tracking time, through the timesheets, and there's so many things to know that I feel like on our first day, not only are we learning about UX, but we are learning about a completely new company. And, for me personally, it's great. It's a great culture. But it's definitely the most unique place that I've worked, in a good way, totally in a good way. But it's very, it takes a lot of adjusting. I would estimate, at least, I don't know, maybe half and half through the apprenticeship, where it was, I think by the end of the 3 months when we became associates, I felt like I had a better grasp on the Nerdery and the culture. Like I was kind of starting to finally feel adjusted, but it was probably, at least for the duration of the 3 months, that was, half learning UX, half learning Nerdery.
Yeah, and I think it was ongoing, but I think Fred did a good job of keeping us focused on UX.
He did.
So, we had weekly workshops with just our apprentice team and him, and a ton of reading. He assigned tons and tons of reading, and so we were focused on that. And so I think, I'd just say he did a good job of keeping us learning UX, and then also, as we needed to, we were constantly learning how the Nerdery does something.
Yeah, and I think it helped too that we were in a group of, there were 4 of us in our apprenticeship group, and I think that helped that we were all at the same level, where we were all going through the same thing. We were all at the same point where we were learning UX that was new to us, for the most part. And so I think that helped to have, we really formed a close bond in our apprenticeship group, and we really were united together in that, and it helped to have other voices to talk, other people to talk to. It's like, well, what are you experiencing? Well, I'm experiencing the same thing, and you're not alone, because there's 3 other people who
who are probably feeling the same way. And we finally realized that, and we started meeting weekly to talk about, you know, how our experiences were and what each person was going through. That I think really made a big difference as well.
Yep.
Great. I actually have another question too.
Great.
So one thing I'm really interested in, both when we recruit students and when we try to make sense of our own student population and what makes a good user experience designer, it's really hard to pin down any particular background that somebody might have as predicting how well they'll do in user experience design. So we have people who really excel who've come. One of the probably the easiest predictors is maybe graphic design, but that's it's not necessarily true. I mean, we have people who come from IT backgrounds who make really good UX. We have people who have humanities backgrounds who really, you know, somehow they got into web development and now they want to learn more about the design aspect of it. And so technical writers too are really another group that we see a lot coming in. What are some of the, as you meet people at the Nerdery, which is a pretty big firm, what are some backgrounds that people have had that have kind of surprised you, or you know, I don't know. Do you understand what I'm saying? You know, I mean, have you run into any interesting backgrounds that stood out?
We have, let's see. I know we have writers. We have, what other backgrounds are there? There's a few people that have actually gone on and gotten their master's in human-computer interaction. I'm trying to
librarian.
Yep, there's a librarian which her background definitely applies. She's focused a lot on the content.
She works on content. Okay.
Right. Yep. And yes, there's some graphic designers.
Medical. Some people have come from the medical background as well.
Yep.
I think.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say I want to say that I feel surprised by. I mean, maybe when I met I was thinking librarian, but then you can't really be surprised anymore because of, you know, kind of learning, like we were talking about how so many things do apply to UX. So like, oh yeah, that makes total sense that, you know, you could come from that and again, like organize the content and organizing that. So yeah, as far as like being surprised though, I don't know if too many people's backgrounds really shocked me coming here.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. I see that, although as a question, can you describe your typical day or even, from start to finish, if there is a typical day?
As an apprentice?
Yes. Okay. Well, or even now. He didn't specify, but I would say, you know, or has it changed from the time you were an apprentice to what it's like now?
Yeah, it has changed. Yeah, and you know, apprenticeship and associate designer are different roles. I think it's changed in the sense that we were doing more apprenticeship-focused activities during the apprenticeship, and you know, now we're full-time on projects and we're integrated into our teams here at the Nerdery. And as apprentices, we're meeting with our apprentice group regularly and meeting with Fred on a regular basis and doing workshops. And we were progressing through, there's different levels that Fred had built into the apprenticeship. And so we were progressing through each level, and that determined our level of involvement on each project. So if maybe we were starting off at the observation or the assistance level, and then we would progress up to, you know, where we were full mentorship or oversight, and we were doing these tasks, you know, on our own with the guidance of our mentor on that project. So it was a different level of involvement on projects as well.
Yeah, I feel like as apprentices, we were on a lot more projects at the same time, but not as involved, obviously. Yeah. We were kind of jumping from project to project because we were focused more on certain methods within those projects. So, you know, I might be doing wireframes for one project. Another project now, they're doing a user interview. So I want to sit in and watch that user interview, but that may be my only involvement in that project at that time. Obviously, now as associates, we are on our own, you know, we're full-time on a project, so from start to finish. So that's a huge difference. You may not be working on as many projects at the same time, but
yeah, we're definitely involved in a lot.
Right.
So I guess just a follow up before we move to the next question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a typical day?
I would say maybe more so was a typical day as an apprentice versus associate. I don't know if you would agree with that, Claire. I mean, because we maybe had more, structured. I mean, because Fred would schedule a workshop, and so we knew like this day we had 4 hours of a workshop, or we had our weekly apprentice meeting, or we would have this activity, or But then as an associate,
I feel like there was a lot
fairly, but
yeah, there were a lot of things going on as an apprentice. Every day. I guess I feel more like as an apprentice things were different from day to day, because we may be doing a workshop one day and a project the next, and then doing an internal team project another day. Whereas now we are focused more on our assigned projects that we're working on all different types of methods within that project, whatever it takes to get the job done. So.
Okay. I have a question from Ryan here, and he says, I always find it interesting how people define UXD because there seems to be such varied answers. So from what you've learned at the Nerdery and your apprenticeship, how would you define UXD now?
Define UX?
Yeah.
I feel as a big, I guess a big overview description would be solving problems to meet people's needs. And that is obviously kind of a blanket, just really big picture, covers it kind of everything, because and when I say people, it's obviously users. You're focusing on making things that people enjoy using, and that they want to use, and they're able to use it because they understand it and it's easy. But you're also keeping in mind the stakeholders if you're looking at it from a practical approach. Your stakeholders have a large say in what happens, and there's budget, and there's all of those project planning things to consider, timeline and budget, and so you're meeting their needs as well. You're problem solving for them and keeping their users in mind and making recommendations based on how you feel that their users are either currently using this product or will be using this product.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Good way to put it. And I think too that as I've been telling people what I do, I'm a UX designer, and a lot of people are like, oh, what now? Or, our user experience. So I think one of the challenges, which is actually interesting, if we are UX designers, is how do I explain it to, my family or to somebody that they might not understand exactly, might not ever heard of UX before. So how do I describe it in terms that they can understand? And it's funny that I found as I'm telling people, I work with the, websites and apps, and I work on making the interface. I probably don't use an interface, or the process of, how you would interact with a website or a mobile app, and that I design that process, and I take into consideration your feelings and your behaviors and your interaction patterns, and some of those things I talk about. And everybody, as soon as you kind of start talking more on their level, and people are like, whoa, I totally don't like how this website works, and they start going into all these things, and here's this website, can you fix this website for me? I don't like how this works. And I don't know, it's kind of funny, but I found that as I'm talking to people, everybody can relate to it, and how, UX is everywhere. I mean, it's our experiences with, on a daily basis with not just websites and apps, but, products, and, even as we're driving, I don't know, just your experience, it's everywhere, it's all around you. And I think once you start talking to people about that, they realize it too, and they're like, oh yeah, I understand what you do completely.
Everybody struggles with something, products or interfaces, and I know I can see my dad is the best person to test things on, because he's not shy about telling you if something's not working correctly. In fact, he'll volunteer and say, well, let me try it. If I can't do it, then, if you can make it work for me, it'll work for anybody, basically, is what he tells.
Yeah, I think that's something that comes up a lot is, show it to your mom, show it to your dad, and if they can do it, if that's your target audience,
if that's right.
Yeah, that's
right.
true. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wanted to comment a little bit on, you guys talked about passion, and that obviously comes through in the way that you talk about what you're doing. And I have to say that one of the rewarding things for me as a faculty member for the last 10 years in this program is working with students who are passionate about this. And you know, I don't have any trouble motivating my students to do this. Once people get a taste of this kind of work, they yeah, I think the enjoyment of it comes through. It comes through in the assignments that students do, and so you know, when you guys are thinking about hiring people into the apprenticeship program, we can certainly push some people your way, because I mean, it reminds me, when I hear you guys talk, it reminds me of the students that we have in the program, and it's really, it's so much fun. It's rewarding to work with people who love what they do and are excited about what they do.
And and I know Fred Beecher has told us that was one of the main deciding factors in hiring us, was because he could see our passion, and he knew that we were reading books and articles about UX, and really it showed through. And also another point is, if you're passionate about something, you're going to take the extra time to do it well, to get out there and try new things and look for a career that, because you enjoy it. So it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I think this is one of the fields that, you know, there's probably several fields where people I mean, I guess you get excited about anything, but the people that I know and the people that I associate with got excited about this area, which means we kind of all found a niche, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think, you know, as what you're saying, you found a niche. I think we felt that way a lot when we started the apprenticeship, all of us. I mean, I am speaking for all, but from what conversations we've had, and that's how I was thinking. I'm like, so excited. I found something that combines all of the areas that I'm interested in, and I can see why I'm going to really like this. You know, like, so this is what I thought towards the start of the apprenticeship. I like that word niche. I finally found my niche. You know, it allows me to, you know, I really enjoy working with people, having conversations and getting to know people. So I get that aspect of it, you know, and just the design aspect of it as well, which, you know, my background was also in. So it's a lot of these different things into one career. And it's like, how great is that I can actually do all of those things right in my job.
Yes.
That's great. Okay, we have time for one final question, and Ryan is asking, can you give a specific example of how you demonstrate your UX process on a portfolio component?
Good question.
So, you guys talked about, it's a really good question, because this is, you guys talked, and I don't want to speak too much for Ryan, but you talked earlier about showing your process and showing your, you know, how do you, you know, because I've heard this also from people at the like the IA Summit. I was there last year, and some people were talking about portfolios, and it's not enough just to show a polished deliverable, but how do you get to that point? So maybe if you could talk about that a little bit.
I know I personally would state the problem, what issues need to be addressed, and then showing if I've done research, if I've done sketching, process flows, wireframes, all of that. They want to see it all, and making it clear. Actually, photography is a great way to show it too, especially if you're doing user testing or you know, you're conducting a workshop or something. It's great to show if you can throw in photos of you doing those things. It's a quick, somebody can glance at your portfolio, quick see, hey, oh look, they're doing this without reading anything up front, and then you know, briefly explain what was happening there, what your role in it was. Sketches, I always stress that they love seeing sketches, because it shows, you know, right away, you know, that you were getting in there, quickly sketching something out, not jumping right into your tool to create something, but using, well, your paper and pencil tools to create something quickly and start that.
Yeah, showing your thoughts behind here's where this idea originated and then here's where it ended up. I think what sketches are really good for. And speaking to Claire's point, as well about stating the problem and, how did you solve the problem? What was the result of that? What was the outcome? If it was for a client, and it's for student work. And I think you can do the same thing as well. What was the problem? How did I solve it? What was my role, in this? What skills did I apply? And I think what's really valuable as well is what did you learn from that, from solving that problem? What experience did you gain and how did that help make you a better designer? How did that contribute to the skills that you have? So I think all those things, and I agree with Claire, photography is great as well. Whatever, visual that you can show as well as, what you can do in terms of explaining what the project was about and your role on that is big as well.
Oh, that's great. Great answer and great question to finish up with today. Because I think, everybody loves this stuff like we talked about, but in the end, you have to get a job and you have to show what you can do in order to get the job. And so for students, that's often a difficult thing. And we're fortunate to be in a field that's growing and has a lot of jobs, but you have to get your foot in that door the first time. And I want to thank you, Claire and Heather, for your talk today. It was really good, really informative. And to everyone who attended, I want to thank you. And I hope you got something out of this today. I want to thank Michael Romeo, who was a DA, who had a lot of correspondence with Claire and Heather prior to this, and he keeps this thing running and keeps the website running. And next month we have no talk scheduled. So if anybody out there would like to propose a talk, we can get you on the schedule. But anyway, we will fight on here. And again, thank you to Claire and Heather, and thank you everybody for attending. It was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.